Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday morning down here in Wellington. It's 7:30, I think. Pretty sure it's 7:30, yep. In the office here. Last night was great fun on Backbenchers. I can't believe it's the second to last program of the series for this year. Gosh, I hope it gets another contract next year. I think it's a great way for the New Zealand public to see their politicians uncensored. So they have to answer the questions on the hoof, and I think that's a really good way to judge how a person knows their topic. I thought it was interesting that at least two members of the panel have had some catchphrases drilled into their psyche so that they repeat the message. But oh well, there's a job, I suppose. My mum got a lot of airtime on Backbenchers last night, which is great because she's an awesome woman and she should get more airtime. So that was really cool. Right, so last night I had to come back from Backbenchers and we did the committee stage, or part of the committee stage, of the Education Legislation Bill. Now that's not to be confused with the global funding model that's going on at the moment and the Education Update Bill. So the Education Legislation Bill does a few things, like allows a principal to be contracted over several schools so that they are more principal of more than two, and a few other things, and it allows Teach First NZ graduates down into primary school, which New Zealand First opposes strongly because we don't think that apprentice teachers, unsupervised in the classroom, should be working with primary school children. So we did try to have it restricted to secondary school, but the government is not interested in participating in actually constructive conversation. So there you go. The thing I did say to you was that I was going to start telling you what is in the Education Update Amendment Bill. And so I touched on COOLs the other day, which are Communities of Online Learning. And so the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was the it's going to repeal the Private Schools Integration Act 1975. Now, the argument is that it's going to pull the integrated schools. Now, integrated schools are predominantly privately owned religious character schools. So we're mostly talking about the Catholic schools in New Zealand. And it's going to repeal the act that created those schools and created the funding models around them. The reason why it's a little bit concerning is that it would appear that what will happen when they pull those schools inside, or repeal that act and pull them inside the Education Act 1989 in this way, is that it would appear that if the private entity has to create any more buildings, any more property have any more property spend due to a decision of the government, the taxpayer will pay for those private assets. So it sounds very, very similar to what's been happening with charter schools, where we give them all the money and they own all the property. For example, if Whangaruru was up in the far north, the charter school that was closed down, that now that the Sponsors Trust up there has a $5.6 million asset that was paid for by you, if that was a state school and it still got closed down, we, the taxpayer, would sell that property and get our money back. At the moment, if it was an integrated school, they would have had to build the buildings. There would have been a percentage of money from the state for the students that were going into that school, and little other pieces of money. But what it looks like now is, if that was an integrated school up there at Whangaruru, we would have paid for all of the property. They would have owned all of the property we paid for, and we would still have been funding some of their students. So that's the concern we have with the repealing of the Private Schools Integration Act in 1975 and the way that it's been put inside the Education Act 1989 under this legislation. And it binds the hands of future governments. And that's always really interesting. It binds the hands of future governments. So that's another piece that's inside the Education Update Legislation Bill. Ponder on that one. Bye.